Cabin stewards are the hardest people working on the ship. They're up before dawn, cleaning cabins back to back, handling requests, and still greeting every guest with a smile. On the surface, they're all warmth and politeness, but behind the scenes, they're human, and there are certain things passengers do that absolutely drive them crazy. The funny part? Most of these aren't wild or outrageous. They're things you probably think are completely normal, and that's why they frustrate stewards the most. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on 14 of these habits. Some of them might surprise you, some might make you laugh, and a few might even make you rethink the way you cruise. Let's get into it. Number 1. Leaving suitcases open on the floor. You board. You unpack a little, but not fully, so the suitcase stays half-zipped, lying open right in the middle of the cabin. Maybe you live out of it for the week. Totally normal, right? But for stewards, this is a nightmare. Those bags turn the cabins into an obstacle course. Remember, they're carrying armfuls of towels, fresh linens, and trays of glasses. Having to step over bulky luggage in a space that's already tight slows everything down and adds stress to an already rushed schedule. I had one steward tell me he tripped on a bag that was sticking out from under a desk, twisted his ankle, and still had to finish the rest of his cabins without falling behind. Guests never knew. It's such a small thing for passengers, but it throws a wrench into a steward's entire flow. Number 2. Constantly changing the cabin setup. Beds pushed together, then separated, then pushed back together again. Some guests even ask for the furniture to be rearranged mid-cruise. Stewards won't complain to your face, but they hate it. Every cabin has a standard setup, and it's designed to be turned around quickly. Changing that layout each time they don't have. One steward once admitted that just moving beds around over and over can throw their entire day off schedule. And when you multiply that by a few cabins on the same floor, it snowballs. It's not that they don't want to accommodate you. They'll smile and say, "Of course." But inside, they're thinking, "Please just pick one setup and stick with it." Number 3. Always keeping the privacy sign out. Guests think the "Do Not Disturb" sign is a polite way to get some extra rest. But to stewards, that little sign is one of the biggest headaches of their day. Their work schedule is tight. Cabins are assigned in a sequence, and every delay means doubling back later. If your sign is out for half the morning, that cabin has to be skipped and squeezed in later when time is already running short. Sometimes, if every guest does this, it forces stewards to rush or even miss a service. I've heard stewards admit they dread hallways filled with "Do Not Disturb" signs. It breaks their flow and means they're likely to be cleaning that room in a hurry, and no steward wants to feel like they're delivering rushed service. Passengers rarely realize it, but that sign changes everything about how the steward's day goes. Number 4. Asking for daily ice, just in case. It seems harmless to ask, "Can we have ice every day?" Some people barely touch it, but like the idea of coming back to a full bucket. Stewards, though, quietly hate it. Ice runs are time-consuming and messy. Buckets are heavy, they melt fast, and it takes extra trips to refill them. When the same bucket is dumped untouched night after night, it feels like wasted effort. One steward confided, "I had a cabin ask for ice every morning, and by evening, the bucket hadn't even been opened. I'd pour it out and start again the next day. It's frustrating." They'll never say so, but it becomes one of those requests they vent about later in the crew bar. Number 5. Using the cabin like a drying rack. Here's a classic that almost every cruiser does without a second thought. Rinsing out swimsuits or washing a t-shirt in the sink, then draping it across a chair, lamp, or railing to dry. Stewards quietly hate this. Wet fabrics drip onto carpets, stain wood, and raise the humidity inside the room. They can leave musty smells that stewards then have to eliminate, sometimes on the clock, sometimes on their own time. One steward told me that damp clothes left over chairs can even cause mildew if it's repeated all week. The guest never notices, but the steward is stuck scrubbing long after they leave. The irony is that ships actually give you a retractable clothesline in the shower specifically for this reason. Most passengers never use it, but stewards notice when you don't, and it makes their job harder. The thread here is simple. These are ordinary habits. Nothing outrageous, nothing rule-breaking, but they chip away at stewards day after day. Because when you're servicing 15, 20, sometimes 30 cabins a day, it's the little things that separate an easy room from a stressful one. And trust me, stewards remember which cabins are which. Now, the next set of habits are where things get even more interesting. These aren't just small frustrations. They're the kind of behaviors that can actually cause embarrassment, extra work, or even trouble for the steward with their supervisors. And that's when the smiles on the outside really mask the grumbling that happens behind closed doors. Number 6. Blocking the steward's cart in the hallway. If you've ever walked down a cruise ship corridor, you've seen the steward's cart parked outside a door. To you, it's just a temporary obstacle. To the steward, that cart is their lifeline, carefully stocked with just enough towels, toiletries, linens, and supplies to last the round. What most passengers don't realize is how often those carts get blocked. People will stop in the middle of the hall to chat, lean on the cart while waiting for someone, or even, and this one makes stewards furious, help themselves to items off it. A shampoo bottle here, an extra towel there. To the guest, it feels harmless, but every item on that cart is tracked and counted. When something is missing, the steward gets blamed. And it's not just about theft. When people crowd the cart, it forces the steward to waste time waiting for the space to clear. Imagine having 20 cabins left to clean and losing 3 minutes at every stop because people are clogging the hallway. By the end of the shift, that steward is an hour behind schedule. They won't show it. They'll smile, step aside, and wait. But later, when they're exhausted and still working at midnight, it's one of the things they'll mutter about under their breath. Number 7. Leaving shoes and clutter on the floor. It's funny. Passengers often think leaving shoes neatly by the door is polite. Better to keep them here than track sand into the cabin, they think. But for stewards, walking into a cabin with shoes, snorkel gear, or bags scattered across the floor is like walking into a booby trap. They're carrying bulky stacks of linen or trays of glasses when they come in. They can't see every inch of the floor. A sneaker out of place, a sandal hidden in the shadows, one trip and they're down. I've heard stories of stewards twisting ankles, bruising shins, even dropping stacks of freshly cleaned glasses because a guest's shoes were in the wrong place. And it's not just shoes. Shopping bags, snorkel gear, kids' toys, piles of laundry. All of it turns a tiny cabin into an obstacle course. Passengers don't mean harm, but it slows everything down. And when you multiply that across dozens of cabins, it adds up to hours of wasted time. One steward admitted that the cabins he dreaded most weren't the messy ones. It was the ones that looked tidy, but had just enough stuff left on the floor to make cleaning a constant dance around hazards. Number 8. Asking for extra everything on day 1. Some passengers get on board and immediately start making requests. More towels, more pillows, stacks of shampoo, 3 blankets just in case. To them, it feels efficient. Better to get it all out of the way early than keep bothering the steward. But what they don't realize is how much stress it causes behind the scenes. Stewards carry limited stock. Every towel, every soap bar, every pillow is counted. When one cabin hoards triple the normal amount, it throws off the supply for the whole section. If another guest later asks for an extra towel and the steward doesn't have it, they're the one who gets scolded for being unprepared. There's also the issue of space. Extra linens and stacks of towels take up precious room in the cabin. Guests often pile them on chairs or stuff them in corners, And when it comes time for stewards to clean, those unused supplies are just more clutter to work around. Stewards will never refuse. They'll smile, bring the extras, and say, "Of course." But inside, they hate the waste. They know half of it will sit untouched all week, and yet they'll still be hauling it back out at the end of the cruise. Number 9. Forgetting to flush the small messes. Nobody wants to talk about this one, but it comes up in every steward's complaints. It's not the big bathroom messes that get to them. Those are expected. It's the small ones, the little things that passengers don't think twice about. A tissue left floating in the toilet, Q-tips in the bowl, makeup pads stuck to the sink, water splashed everywhere. Individually, they're minor, but multiply that by 20 cabins in a row and it becomes exhausting. Imagine cleaning bathroom number 12 of the day, already tired, and being greeted with a wad of soggy tissues that now have to be fished out. It's the kind of thing that makes stewards grit their teeth while they work. And here's something passengers rarely realize. Stewards are sometimes inspected mid-shift. Supervisors pop into cabins to check cleanliness. If the bathroom looks especially bad before the steward has a chance to clean it, it reflects poorly on them. They don't get to explain, "Oh, that was the guest's mess, not mine." It just looks like they're behind. So when passengers leave those little messes behind, it's not just an annoyance. It can actually affect a steward's performance scores. Number 10. Changing towels constantly. This one comes up on every cruise. At home, most people reuse a bath towel for a couple of days. But on a ship, guests treat them as single-use items. Shower, drop the towel, grab a new one. Some cabins go through half a dozen in a day. For stewards, it's one of the most draining parts of their job. Towels are one of the biggest logistical burdens on board. They all have to be washed, dried, folded, stacked, and delivered every single day. When one cabin churns through an endless supply, it inflates the workload not just for their steward, but for the entire laundry system. Stewards notice. They'll never complain, but they'll silently dread the cabins that leave heaps of barely used towels on the floor. Some even talk about it among themselves. The towel abusers, as one steward called them. The irony? Guests think they're just following the system. If I put it on the floor, they'll replace it. And they're right. Stewards will replace it every single time. But behind the smile is someone quietly cursing the unnecessary laundry pile they now have to deal with. Number 11. Overpacking the closet and drawers. Stewards don't mind if you unpack. In fact, most prefer it because it means fewer bags in the way. What they secretly hate, though, is when guests treat the cabin storage like a moving van. Drawers jammed with clothes, closets stuffed so tight they have to wrestle the door closed, bathroom shelves covered wall to wall with toiletries. From the passenger's perspective, it looks neat and organized, but from the steward's side, it's a problem. They're expecting to clean and dust every surface. If every inch is covered, they're stuck trying to wipe around your things without knocking anything over. And if something does get nudged, that can create tension. There are stories of guests accusing stewards of moving or losing items simply because they had to work around cluttered shelves. Overstuffed spaces also take a toll on the cabin itself. Closet doors get pulled off track. Drawer rails bend under the pressure. Bathroom shelves crack. And guess who has to report it, explain it, and often take the blame? The steward. One told me bluntly, "When I see a cabin with every drawer crammed, I already know I'm losing time and risking complaints." It's not that they don't want you to be comfortable. It's that overpacking turns simple cleaning into an obstacle course. Number 12. Running the bathroom fan all day. This one surprises most everyone. Guests think they're doing the steward a favor by leaving the bathroom fan running nonstop. Keeps the room fresh, they figure. Stewards quietly hate it. Cruise ship ventilation systems are delicate and interconnected. A fan running constantly doesn't just affect your cabin, It changes the airflow in surrounding cabins too. It can push humidity into the hallway or even pull in smells from neighboring bathrooms. When that happens, it's not the guest who gets blamed. It's the steward, because supervisors assume the cabin wasn't serviced properly. Imagine working a 12-hour day and then being told your hallway smells musty, when the real reason is a fan left on full blast for 3 days. Most passengers never even think about it. They flip the switch once and forget. But for stewards, it's one of those silent irritations that ripples into bigger consequences. They'll never say anything, but behind closed doors, it's on the list of things we wish guests understood. Number 13. Treating the hallway like storage space. This one happens on every cruise. Guests park strollers, suitcases, snorkel gear, even trays of food right outside their doors. It's just for a minute, they think. Stewards hate it. First, it's a safety violation. Cruise ships operate under strict fire codes, and anything left in a corridor is considered a hazard. If an officer does an inspection and sees clutter, it's the steward responsible for that section who gets chewed out, not the guest who left it there. Second, it makes their work harder. Those hallway carts they push, they're already wide. Now add a stroller sticking out or a stack of fins leaning against a wall, and suddenly moving through becomes a physical workout. Some stewards admit they've knocked things over and then had to deal with the angry passengers demanding explanation, when it was the guest's choice to leave it in the hallway in the first place. And third, it looks bad. Guests walking by see clutter and assume the hallway isn't managed properly. That reflects on the steward's professionalism, even though it isn't their fault. I once heard a steward mutter after passing 3 sets of golf clubs leaning against a cabin door, "It looks like a garage sale out there, and if my boss sees it, I'm the one in trouble." It's one of those behaviors that feels completely harmless to passengers, but stewards quietly despise it. Number 14. Staying in the cabin while they clean. This is the big one. The number one thing that stewards across cruise lines agree they hate most. And it's also the one thing that feels the most normal to guests. Plenty of passengers think nothing of lounging in bed or scrolling on their phone while the steward comes in to make the room. It seems polite enough. You're not in the way, you're just relaxing. But for stewards, it's awkward, stressful, and frustrating. Cleaning cabins is like a choreography. They move fast, stripping beds, replacing towels, wiping surfaces, and they have it down to a rhythm. That rhythm depends on space and freedom. When a guest is sitting on the bed, or worse, following them around the cabin, the whole flow breaks. One steward told me, "I hate when people stay in. I feel like I'm being watched, like every move is judged. I can't clean freely, and it always takes twice as long." And time is everything. Supervisors measure how long stewards spend per cabin. If they're slowed down because someone insists on being there, it shows up in the numbers. To the boss, it looks like inefficiency. To the steward, it's just another layer of stress. Beyond that, it's simply uncomfortable. Imagine trying to vacuum around someone's feet while they're staring at their phone, or cleaning a bathroom while a guest sits 2 feet away. The steward will smile, but inside, they're counting the seconds until they can get out. It's the ultimate hidden frustration. Perfectly normal for passengers, deeply hated by the people doing the work. And here's the thread running through all 14. None of these habits are outrageous. You're not throwing parties in your cabin. You're not smuggling contraband. You're not breaking obvious rules. You're just living the way you normally would. But on a cruise ship, normal can quietly create chaos for the crew. A suitcase left open, a fan left running, shoes left on the floor. One by itself isn't a big deal. Multiply it across a hallway of cabins, or a whole deck of passengers, and it becomes the difference between a steward finishing on time or dragging themselves through a 14-hour shift. That's why these little things get under their skin. They don't show it. They'll keep smiling, folding towel animals, greeting you by name. But when the doors close and they're venting to each other in the crew bar, These are the habits they bring up again and again. And passengers who avoid them? Those are the cabins that stand out. Those are the names stewards remember fondly, the people they go the extra mile for, the ones who get an extra towel animal, or a little surprise left in the room, or simply the best service the steward can give. So there you have it. 14 things you probably thought were harmless, but cabin stewards secretly hate. They won't tell you to your face, but they notice. And when you avoid even a few of these, you make their life easier, and in turn, your cruise experience gets better. Now I want to hear from you. What's the most normal thing you've ever done on a cruise that, looking back, might actually have annoyed the crew? Share it in the comments. I guarantee there'll be some funny confessions. And before you go, make sure you check out this next video right here. It dives even deeper into cruise secrets most passengers never hear about. Plus, grab your free cruise checklist in the description so you never make these mistakes yourself. Your voyage is just beginning.